Things are picking up in the transfer window now. Eddie Nketiah looks like he's on the brink of a move to Marseille. We're going to give you all the latest news around that and talk about how Merino's getting closer and closer and closer. But it does actually feel like this one is going to happen too. And all this, for me, along with other evidence I've got in this video that I'm going to bring to you today, tells me that actually Arsenal will move for a forward and Arsenal will try and get someone in that attacking line, whether it's a striker or a winger, to try and give us a little bit more firepower going into next season. Now, a lot of people have doubts about it, but I've got the evidence to try and explain to you why I think this really could be happening in the remaining, 3 weeks of the transfer window. Let's break it all down, starting with the latest around Eddie Nketiah, because lots of updates have been coming in over the last 24 hours, with Fabrizio Romano at the heart of it, letting us know that Marseille had exploded a move for El Yawahi in the last 24 hours, and that Nketiah remained an option after Arsenal became open to discussing terms of the deal again after they rejected the initial €27 million bid. So we're looking around £24 million Arsenal have rejected more recently. Now, Fabrizio Romano then did let us know about a day or two later that Marseille have sent a new bid to Arsenal. We weren't 100% sure what that was looking like. We don't know the exact numbers, but he did say that Marseille were happy to return in talks, but they'd only advance at their conditions. And then actually this is kind of supported by David Ornstein's update today. We came in and said that Arsenal are ready to sanction the Nketiah exit to Marseille. It's a proposed season-long loan with a bar obligation of around €30 million. That's the highest fee that we've seen thrown around in terms of that €30 million, which is around £26 million. Now, personal terms of the 25-year-old are agreed with a 5-year contract, but the ball is now in Marseille's court to decide if they want to proceed or not. So, similar reports there from Romano and Ornstein, both saying that really it's in Marseille's court what they want to do about this, but slightly differing in terms of Ornstein saying that they've got a deal, Arsenal, that they're willing to do and they're happy to do, but Romano's more saying that Marseille have actually put in a bid and it's in Arsenal's court to see what happens there to a degree as well. So slightly conflicting reports, but what we do have from Fabrice Hawkins is also this, saying that to date Marseille are not ready to pay the €30 million for Eddie Nketiah. That might be why a loan kind of makes sense. You do the loan and then next summer you know that the money's coming in from an Arsenal perspective, and Eddie knows that that deal is signed, sealed, delivered, and he's going to have his future there. So interesting to see how this gets done, whether it gets done. I think a lot of people's reaction is, wow, it's on the brink, in a few days it will be announced to Marseille. I think this is definitely picking up pace and definitely moving, and I always say when David Ornstein gets hold of this kind of information, is talking about a transfer, that lets us know that it's very likely going to happen, but nothing is done quite yet. But I do think it's going to happen. Now, on Mikel Merino, lots of different reports around this, but mainly Fabrizio Romano, again at the heart of it, letting us know that Arsenal remained in active talks to complete the Merino deal. But what he did say was that clubs are working on a deal structure and payment terms for a fee of over €25 million. So originally it was around the €30 million mark. Now they're saying €25 million, which is around £22 million. So that would be a really, really good deal for Arsenal. For what it's worth, I think we'll settle around the £25 million mark. And Matteo Moretto works close with Romano, also came in with some of his exclusives and did say that Mikel Merino has already communicated his desire to go to Arsenal. Negotiations are progressing as planned. Now, Arsenal fans were panicking a little bit because Zubimendi to Liverpool looks a real goer. Could he be making the move to Liverpool to the Premier League after initially rejecting us and other clubs as well? It might be possible. Of course, both Zubimendi and Merino play for Real Sociedad. Does one deal impact the other? Both central midfielders as well. In my opinion, no. And it feels like our move for Merino is a little bit more advanced. And on the Zubimendi stuff, there's still some convincing to do for Liverpool. So I wouldn't worry if I were Arsenal fans. Romano also said that Zubimendi has been called up for Real Sociedad's next game, which is of course a friendly getting ready for the season. Merino has not been called up as Arsenal talks are still ongoing. They're advanced, but with deal structure and payment terms to clarify. So that was an update from a couple days ago as well. So I wouldn't worry about the Zubimendi thing affecting the Merino thing. I think they're separate deals. One has a release clause in Zubimendi. Merino has a year left on his deal. I don't think Sociedad really have the power to keep either, other than just trying to convince them that they're better off staying at the club. So I wouldn't worry too much from that perspective. But I think these two deals are evidence, along with other things, that Arsenal are going to make a big move for a striker this summer. Whether they get them is a different question, but I think they will absolutely try. Now, let me just put this out there. And I have to, because you just know how the world of social media and transfers works and everything. Firstly, I'm not an ITK. I do not have inside information. I really wish I did, but I do not know. Secondly, this is all a, what's the word? It's an opinion. No, there's a word for it. It's an evidence-based opinion. Like I'm bringing you data and research to try and explain why I think Arsenal will actually get a signing in the forward line this summer. If I'm wrong, I apologise, but I want you all to let me know in the comment section below after I provide my evidence whether you agree that something could definitely be happening in this area of the pitch. But let me go through it all. Firstly, I just want to talk about Eddie Nketiah in a little bit more detail, because I don't think we can ignore how fans feel about this deal. They're largely happy that he's moving on, that we're getting a good fee. No one particularly feels that we need Eddie Nketiah going into next season. And I think I'm putting it nicely when I say that. But I will say this, whatever we think about him, the important thing is actually what Arteta thinks about him. And Arteta has played him. Arteta has trusted him. Let me just show you this. Nketiah's Premier League minutes compared to other Arsenal players. He ranked 18th for Premier League minutes played in the 21-22 season, but he's seen those minutes increase year on year, ranking 12th and then 14th, but playing the most minutes he's played of a Premier League season in the last campaign, albeit he wasn't trusted much in the second half of the season where he opted for Havertz, Jesus and other players up front. He did play, or let's say this, 11 players played fewer minutes than Eddie last season in the Premier League from the Arsenal squad, 11 players. So it just shows you that when you're in that 12th to 14th bracket, you're in that crop of 15, 16 players that Arteta's using for the majority of the season. When you've got, injuries to other players, Jesus missed some football, Havertz was playing midfield. Eddie Nketiah did also start the North London derby at home in the 2-2 draw and in the Man City 1-0 win at the Emirates. So those are big games that you trusted him for, and he was playing a lot of the start of the season. So whatever we think of Eddie Nketiah as fans, and whether we think we're sort of ready to move on, happy to move on, Arteta has clearly liked him and has clearly trusted him, and if he's going to go, is going to want to replace him. That would be a big hole in his squad, where he gave him the number 14 shirt and he gave him the 100 grand a week. So I do think it's important to remember that context too. Now, the second thing is the Merino fee being around £25 million. Why is this important? Why does it make a difference? Because Arsenal haven't really splashed out on an area of the pitch that apparently they really wanted to address in central midfield. Now, I think that Arteta will have wanted to add quality to this team this summer in some way, shape or form, whether it's getting that specialist number 8 midfielder that completes the midfield, or getting someone that does a job there and then going big in the forward line. I can't see Arsenal, and when I say big, I'm not talking 100 or even 80 million pound signings, but I'm talking that 50 to 60 million pound player that really brings something quality and brings something different and feels like a somewhat guaranteed starter in R11, maybe. But let me just show you Arsenal's window and actually projected spending so far. David Raya coming in for 27 million. Of course, he came in last summer, but the 27 million has been spent this summer, with Calafiore at 40 million. And let's put that Merino deal in at £25 million as an incoming. Well, with Smith Rowe going out for £34 million, of course that includes the add-ons, at Eddie Nketiah around £26 million, albeit we won't get it till next summer, but we know it is coming, of course. Arsenal's net spend in terms of deals done and deals agreed for this summer is around £32 million. That is pretty low for a team that has a second year of Champions League football, with more Champions League games to play, and has been finishing in the top 2 the last 2 seasons, along with actually selling 2 homegrown prospects that are pure profit. From that perspective, Arsenal should be in a really good position to actually go and spend more. All the reports are saying that Arsenal want to add a forward this summer, but I just think when you look at the position we're in financially and the other deals we've done across the team, I think it leaves Arsenal in a good position financially to go and get that deal done. But I'm no financial expert. Let me give you more evidence, because when Arteta spoke to ESPN at the beginning of July, as Arsenal were returning to some sort of fitness and training, he was asked that, where did things go wrong? Was it simply the Villa game, or was it deeper than that? And again, you can hit the pause button if you want to read the full article. But what he said here in this answer, so efficiency in the box was a dictator of success when we are so dominant like we are right now in many games. He is saying, we weren't as efficient in the box as we could and should have been. I've got evidence for that, but I do think it's important to understand that Arteta himself has said, yeah, we scored 91 goals, the most goals we've scored in a Premier League season. And yes, we know that Saka's numbers are getting better, and Trossard came up clutch, and Havertz did better up front than we expected. But the efficiency in the box was a little bit of a problem for Arsenal in big games like West Ham at home, Fulham at home, Villa home and away. These were big games where it felt like if we'd been a little bit more clinical, we punched them, we win those games, more points and a title in our hands. Now, City might point to other games like that, but I feel like Arsenal really had quite a lot of games where they would just look back at missed chances and feel like they left goals on the pitch. Now, he's tried to address this before. We need to remember the Sesko pursuit at the beginning of this summer, a £56 million signing that Arsenal were willing to do. Mikel and Mudryk at around £80 million was a deal that they tried to do a year and a half ago, and Vlahovic 2.5 years ago was a player that, again, Arsenal were looking to do business on and would have been about a £70 million signing. So Arteta and Arsenal have tried to add, you know, a different profile up front, a more out-and-out goal scorer, or at least some pace and quality in the wide areas too, which tells me again that Arsenal will want to try and address it this summer. Now, in terms of the goal scoring record and the, you know, addressing this whole 91 goals from last season, which of course is impressive, and I talked about that in a recent video, it's important to remember this run here. From Arsenal beating Palace 5-0 on the 20th of January to Arsenal beating Brentford 2-1 on the 9th of March, that was all in the space of 2 international breaks, or breaks from football, because there was a winter break just before that in January. Arsenal scored a lot of goals in this period, in fact 33 goals in 8 games. They ended up scoring 58 goals in the remaining 30 games either side of that break. When you break that down, and I'm going to show you it here in a graphic, in terms of how reliable our goal rate is, those 8 games from the 20th of Jan to the 9th of March had a 4.13 goals per game rate that Arsenal was scoring at. It was incredible, 5, 6s, 4s across the board. In the 30 games after, it was a goal rate of 1.93. So while of course the 91 goals is terrific, there was a massive jump there in that 8-game stretch where Arsenal went from not really in the kind of, what's the word, the goal difference race, you know, we were quite far off Man City. They just sort of suddenly went, it was like stratospheric, like jump in numbers, and suddenly Arsenal were leading the way for goals conceded, goals assists and goal difference, and it actually felt like an edge we might have on Man City in this title race. It's also worth looking at the set piece record, showing that Arsenal, with the 20 goals from set pieces, were also not just reliant on goals from set pieces, but actually getting the opening goal in games to alleviate the pressure and just set the tone a little bit. Teams therefore have to break out their structure, and Arsenal can play their football and go score a lot more goals against a slightly more open team because the set pieces are a little bit of a cheat code. Can Arsenal replicate that next season as well? All this evidence I've provided for you here tells me that Arsenal will know this, Arteta and Edu will know this, and they will want to go and add something different, even for the sake of just having a different tool and something different, unpredictable going into next season, so teams aren't used to, you know, us throwing what we've been throwing in the last 2 years. I think Arsenal, with the absence of Eddie Nketiah, that sale feels imminent, with pretty sensible transfer fees on Merino Nketiah, Smith Rowe leaving as well, the number 14 being free, and also it being an area that Arsenal tried to address for a while, I think Arsenal will sign a forward in the remaining 3 weeks. That's the bold decision I'm going with. I rated it 6 out of 10 when I was talking about it on Talking Transfers. I said that's kind of how I feel in terms of whether Arsenal get it done, but pulling this all together, I do actually think they'll do it. But let me know in the comment section below. Don't get mad at me if I'm wrong. I am sorry if I am. It's just a prediction based on everything here. Now, me and Sharoy talked about this on the latest Goonerverse podcast, how to complete the Arsenal squad and what they need. Go check that out if you missed it. I know we've played football since then, but a lot of everything we covered is still relevant today. Big thanks for all tuning in, and hit the like button if you did enjoy this video, and I'll catch you all very soon.